Night had been long, but for Mara Lewis, it was finally supposed to end. The soft hum of the coolers echoed through the quiet convenience store, and the smell of coffee grounds lingered in the air. Outside, the world looked calm beneath the pale light of the setting sun. She was wiping down the counter, exhausted but content, ready to turn off the lights and lock up. But fate had other plans, the kind that can twist an ordinary night into something unforgettable. Because just as Mara reached for the key to close the register, the doorbell chimed, and 3 men walked in. Before she could greet them, she felt something cold. Not from the air conditioning, but from their eyes. The tall one in front smirked, his boots thudding against the tiled floor. "We're not here to buy," he said, with a grin that made her stomach twist. His 2 friends followed close behind, laughing under their breath, their shadows stretching long across the floor. Mara's heart began to race. She glanced toward the clock, 10 minutes past closing. She was alone. Or at least, she thought she was. If you believe kindness, courage, and standing up for what's right can still change the world, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. It helps stories like this reach more hearts. Mara tried to keep calm, her voice trembling as she said they were closed. But the men only stepped closer. The one in the leather jacket, his name tag read Kyle, laughed. "Closed?" he echoed mockingly. "We're just getting started." One of them leaned on the counter, pretending to study the candy bars, while the third, wearing a red flannel, moved closer toward the side aisle, blocking her exit. The air felt heavy, suffocating. She thought of her mother, who was home waiting, and how she always said, "You never know who walks into your life. Some to hurt you, some to save you." Her trembling hands clutched the counter as Kyle leaned closer, his breath reeking of alcohol. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he taunted. "Nervous." When she didn't answer, he grabbed the front of her red shirt, yanking her forward. The fabric tore near the collar with a sharp sound that broke her inside more than the cloth ever could. She gasped, stumbling back, trying to pull free, but his grip was tight. The other 2 burst into laughter, loud, mocking, cruel. "Guess we found some entertainment tonight," one sneered. Tears filled her eyes, but she fought them back. She couldn't give them that satisfaction. She tried to think, to reach for something, anything, but fear froze her in place. Then, as if the universe had heard her silent cry, a sound came from the back of the store. A soft thud. A step. And then another. The gang turned their heads, confused. Mara followed their gaze, her breath catching when she saw 3 shadows emerging slowly from between the aisles. They moved with calm precision, heavy boots echoing against the clean tiles. The men, who had been laughing just seconds ago, fell silent. The leader of the group stepped forward into the light. A tall, rugged man in his late 40s, with a thick salt and pepper beard and tattoos crawling down his arms. His black leather vest bore the unmistakable emblem, Hell's Angels. The patch on his chest read CHLLS. Behind him walked 2 others, one bald with a long dark beard, the other younger, with shoulder-length hair and sunglasses perched on his head. They looked like they'd seen enough of the world to recognize trouble when it showed up. Mara stood frozen behind the counter, heart pounding, as the bikers stopped a few steps away. The air between them and the gang was thick with silence. The leader's eyes, cold yet calm, locked on Kyle's hand, still gripping her torn shirt. His voice came out low, steady, dangerous. "You might want to let go of that." For a second, Kyle tried to act tough. He chuckled, pretending not to care, but his voice cracked slightly. "What's it to you, old man?" The biker didn't answer. He just stepped forward, one slow, deliberate stride. His presence alone seemed to shift the air. Kyle hesitated, then finally released Mara's shirt, taking a small step back. His smirk faded. His friends went quiet, their confidence shrinking. "You boys had your fun," the biker said, his tone soft yet sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Now you're going to walk out, calmly." But thugs don't like being told what to do, especially by men who don't flinch. Kyle spat on the floor. "You think you can scare us?" he snapped, though his voice trembled. That was his mistake. The younger biker behind the leader cracked his knuckles. The bald one tilted his head, smirking faintly, as if he'd seen this story before. The leader's eyes never left Kyle's. "No," he said, his tone calm. "I don't think." What happened next wasn't a brawl. It was a storm that lasted seconds. Kyle tried to shove the biker, but his arm was caught mid-motion. A twist, a step, a sound, and he was on the floor, groaning. The second man lunged, but the bald biker intercepted him, pushing him against the counter so hard the shelf rattled. The third thug froze completely, hands raised, backing away until he hit the door. The bell above it chimed as he ran. The others stumbled after him, shouting something no one bothered to hear. Then, silence. Mara stood behind the counter, her torn shirt trembling in her hands, eyes wide in disbelief. The leader looked at her gently, his tone changing completely. "You okay, miss?" She nodded, barely able to speak. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "Thank you." He just gave a small nod and said, "Keep your lights on a few more minutes. You're never as alone as you think." Then, without another word, the three bikers walked toward the door, their reflections flickering in the glass as they stepped into the sunlight. Mara stood still, feeling her heartbeat slow, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not from fear this time, but from relief. She looked out through the window as the motorcycles roared to life, their sound fading into the distance. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. She realized that heroes don't always wear badges or capes. Sometimes, they wear leather vests and carry a quiet kind of kindness that doesn't need to be spoken. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that goodness can come from the most unexpected souls, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. And before we end, I want you to comment below. What would you have done if you were in Mara's shoes that night? Because sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is believe that kindness still walks among us. Even when it comes wearing tattoos, leather, and a heart that refuses to look away when someone needs saving.